It's August 28th, 2021. All right, so I did a piece on, I watched Tomorrow Wars, TOMORROWS, with Flu. There was an FAA regulated helicopter that flew overhead as I was sitting in his apartment watching the movie with him. I then went upstairs and I did a segue or segment and a recap. I then I watched a little bit of a movie with Lynn. She was watching Barbra Streisand, who's an American, did it all. Like, I just counted, she's got 4 Academy's worth of awards, and she's called an American, which looks totally different. She's from Brooklyn. Looks totally different from where I am sitting in 2021, which is ZOZI, which is August 28th, 2021. Brooklyn no longer looks like Barbra Streisand, and Queens no longer looks Nicole Cattaruzza or Linda Marie Gunder. So that's a culture shock, being that all the culture and all of the everything was stripped away and raped from the lands, and like they've got nothing for the people whatsoever. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean came in and just decided to stick only to themselves, invite other nations in, and totally choke off and choke out the good white kids. And I'm just what's left behind, I guess, as a straggler. I have no route out, and I don't have a Barbra Streisand by my side fighting my battles for me. So she was in apparently a triple feature. It ties into the bassoonist. If I was a principal bassoonist, which I'm not that upper echelon, but it's a wood instrument. But if I wasn't an aficionado, I might call it a wind instrument if I didn't have access to somebody who knew the difference. But inside one of her movies, which is called The Mirror Has Two Faces, she is living a life that I should only be so lucky to have had bestowed upon me. It's not something that I had to have or live through. It's just, it would have been a high-rise penthouse compared to avoid the floodwaters, as opposed to being left in the nativity scene in the manger in the Bible, with the donkey and the horse and 3 wise men coming to visit, none of them having anything good to show for themselves or whatever, following in their rears. So let's think about this. But she was also in another movie called Prince of Tides, which I have not seen, I don't think. And then, I can't remember or recall in this Tomorrow War segue or segment. And then she was in another one, The Way We Were. Now I know buffoon, Baffoon, that's a high-powered word that really ticks off some of the people in like the really stringent area of seminary. I'm like, I'm in the cemetery. I'm in the cemetery where I belong to someone as seminary respectable as a Chris Pratt, or more respectable, but that's my cemetery version of in between the highs and the lows of this diction and fiction and actuality, action and motion, in an ROE, rights of rescission, and there is a rules of engagement, which nobody seems to be following, just saying. And so I'm looking for my seminary representative I belong with and was built with at another space and time, and I was happily married in Never Wanna Let You Go, and just encapsulate us in like cryos something else, Prometheus style in alien life forms, since the rest of the world's gone to hell and gone to shit, and I really don't want to have to live this way ever. And the things living around me seem to be fighting for living this way. Okay, so that happened. And then I've got, right, so I'm cemetery lifestyle. And there's also sedentary lifestyle because all of this good fortune and knowledge and stuff is being taught to all the kids that I used to be. And then they integrated kids that weren't allowed to know things at that at seminary level of high priest and priestess and lord and lordess for like world and global safety. I know then they slice up the loaf of bread because then they get confused, right? Okay, so I'm the satchel around the bread that transports it without the bread getting affected. You're one of the slices of bread. I don't know what. I don't know how to communicate with you. I belong to the satchel that you didn't even know existed. You conceptually know something keeps you safe, but whatever. So then I went to NYPD. So I walked with my umbrella. I spoke to a U.S. postal worker. I've seen this one gentleman. He looks like my cousin Brian Gunder, except Brian Gunder's probably about 6'2". I think that's what he told me last time I saw him. And this U.S. postal worker is around more my size of the Soviet, like around a 5'7" ish, 5'8" maybe. I don't know. I didn't stand so close to him that I had a perfect measurement. So now I stopped to speak to him. I explained to him about because he again U.S. postal worker, but he had no umbrella and he had no cap for his head, but he was pushing one of those U.S. postal mail carrier thingamajigs on Bell Boulevard. They said it wasn't going to rain. I go, well, about the weather patterns. I was like, it's amazing that they ever get anything right. And so he says to me, he goes, well, they only get it. It's like the only job I've ever heard of where they get it wrong 80% of the time. And I'm like, they get it wrong 80% of the time? But yet they're still all employed. I mean, that doesn't... I'm like, yeah, all right. So, so that happened. And I said to him while I was there, I was like, speaking of the weather pattern, I was like, have you heard of something called Havana syndrome? And he goes, no. I said, yeah, I hadn't either. It came on the news the other night. I used it as a TV spot. I was like, I put my body in front of it and then I captured myself on video talking about, because I had a certain event that happened and I didn't know how to explain it, but I'm just doing my best. I was like, but it has to do with, and then I was like combing through my Rolodex of possible ways to connect the dots. I'm like, all right, so without sounding crazy, I'm like, so, like with the weather pattern, right? I mean, they have to keep the weather somehow, so it's like high grade equipment. But then you've got like radio wave technology, whatever. Well, apparently, Havana syndrome's like a broad spectrum, like an autism. There's different symptoms and different side effects. But it's kind of like I put it in this one broad construct just to explain that I was hit with high power radio waves and my symptoms were misdiagnosed by the locals, whatever. I was like, anyway, long story short is, I was just curious if it made its way into your TV or you heard it on the news or not. I don't know. Again, like with community being so non-existent right now, and I have no way of or formal way of communicating with anything in my genealogy and astrology closet. I mean, it's like, oh, forget about astrology. I mean, I can't even get genealogy, ancestry, lineage contacts. So anyway, so I was happy to have him. So then on my way back, I told the valet, who's not in my lineage, I don't believe, or if he is, he's a distant branch of something else. So I'm going to say he's not in my lineage. And I told that valet, who was with a darker-skinned Hispanic, checking out some kind of red and black motorcycle bike. I was like, hey, I said, mi amigo. I said, por favor. I was like, do me a favor. I was like, I forgot to mention it to you earlier. I was like, but I saw this movie called Tomorrow Wars I was like, it's significant. I said, an FAA sent a helicopter over my residence while I was there watching it, because then I did a bit on social media on YouTube just to tie all of the time and space together. So I just wanted to let you know, since you're the valet and you happen to see me in the neighborhood a lot and I talk to you a lot. And he was like, okay. And so then I kept walking. So then I went straight to NYPD and I spoke to that character in his uniform on their camera structure. I pointed out that I wanted it documented on their camera structure, and he was the uniformed authority, I suppose, in our whatever, for documentation, verbal documentation on our camera system. That I watched the movie with Lewis. Tomorrow Wars is about space and time crime, and possibility. And so I did a piece on social media or on YouTube that I uploaded, and I wanted to link together having human interaction with this alien and foreign process. So this way, there's no disputing that humans are involved. I'll be the alien who's doing something that's not common in the local area, and there's a process, an alien process going on somewhere else. So I just wanted to inform him, keep him in the loop of wherever I could, and also tie in the use of regular street surveillance that seems to be all too common in this 2021 Queens area of Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. I confirmed also the Gregorian date being August 28th, 2021. And I think about this. So that happened, and then I came back, and now I'm making this just to have the one side of the heel of bread hold up the other side, or the bookends, on this one timed piece, so there's no disputing that there's some serious stuff going on. I know also in Disneyland Princess category, they have Epcot, EPCOT, which has, the regular, I forget, Magic Kingdom, has in it Tomorrowland. It's part of the thematic park that Walt Disney was a part of. Before I arrived in Century 19, Decade 7, Year 8, in this born identity of Nicole Cattaruzza, star 1978, star 8378. And then Barbara Streisand also, she was born identity, they're reporting, I think, somewhere in the 40s, maybe around Linda's birth date. So their born identities are around the same time frame. For white lineage. And so let me think about this. So that's a time frame piece, because then I come from Foxhole to Foxtrot as of a vixen, but vixen in the sense of the fox and the hound. Because there's a Disney reference in there that's important to tie all these pieces together, because Barbara Streisand came before I did. How did she have more information and better entryway and segue into culture and society, and have 4 academies that she was actively in and received awards from, when Linda doesn't even have the slightest clue? Like, I mean, how, if I asked her, like, how do you think Barbara, like, she'd have no, she's never even thought of it, let's just put it that way. She hasn't climbed that thought process, and Linda's not the kind of person to sit down and try to formulate out things. She just wants to shut it down and shut it off completely. So it's been a very difficult appearance as her daughter. It's Earth, 1 sun solar system, Milky Way, universe. That's the way this is right now. And by solar sun, I mean the heat disk. There's only one circle in the sky at the moment, since even that seemed to have gotten misconstrued at some point.